Okay, guys. So today we're going to talk about inner classes. Now, this is a very important concept, especially when we are talking about integration, bringing responses. So you will use inner classes as a wrapper, and inner class basically is nothing but a class inside another class. Okay, so you can see here you have an outer class defined here, and inside of the outer class you have another class here which is called as the inner class. An inner class is defined inside another class. Now, why do we need inner classes? Now, the inner classes are useful when you want to group logic together. So if there is something, there are classes or there are similar logic, rather than putting into a separate class, basically they put it as an inner class. A service class with a special helper or a wrapper classes. In those scenarios, you will use inner class. In very common scenario of using inner classes is when you have a REST callout. The response of that REST callout, when I mean by callout is means that Salesforce is making a call to another system. Okay, that is an external call out. So this is your external system, and Salesforce is making a call to that system. Now that system will give you back a response, and usually the response is a JSON format. Now, what is a JSON format? JSON format is nothing but it is a format in which it's like this, and there is a key value kind of thing. Okay, so this is a usually HTTP request or any of those APIs work either with an XML, they send the data in a JSON format or in an XML format. Okay, so whenever we are dealing with, when you want to create a custom data structure like JSON serialization and deserialization means um, serialization means that you convert a JSON into a Salesforce object, and deserialization means you convert, um, guys, if you're not talking, can you mute yourself, please? So, deserialization means that if you have a Salesforce object, you convert it into a JSON. So, this is the difference between serialization and deserialization. So, you want to hide implementation details. So, inner classes can be private, so they keep the logic encapsulated. You want to create a small supporting class. For all these reasons, you can create an inner class. So as you can see here, let's say we'll do an example. This is your main class, contact summary service. And inside of this, you have another class called context summary. Okay, there's nothing different. It's just a class inside another class. And the way to refer this particular class is main class dot of context summary. So what is the name of the main class? Contact summary service. If you want to create an object of contact summary, you will basically say something like this. You will say contact summary service, that is the main class, dot of your inner class, which is contact summary. So this is how you will go ahead and call it from outside the main class. Okay. So here, whenever there are classes which have very similar logic, or if you want to encapsulate and when you say encapsulate means you wanted to just protect the some features, so you create an inner class and you put those features inside. A very good example is when you're doing the call out, the response like a wrapper, you will basically put it in as an inner class mostly, or you can also create a separate class to capture the results of a call out. We will do a call out today to see how to make a call to an external system, how the response comes, what do we do with the response, all of that. We will take a look at it today. But today I also want to talk about inner classes, a class inside another class. Okay. So over here, if I have a contact summary service class, so I'm going to go over here. I'll go to the developer console. And we will create a new class here. File, new Apex class, contact summary service. And inside of this, you will also define a inner class. So I'm going to go ahead and I have created a contact summary class. Okay. So contact summary only has three variables: account name, total contacts, and a list of contacts. Okay. So this is what this particular class has. Now we created a get summary method which belongs to this main class, which is the contact summary service class. Now this particular class is taking a parameter of the type ID. And here, this is a SOQL query. Okay, so what are we doing here? We are basically selecting the name, and we are also selecting the contacts associated with a particular account. So we are fetching the name as well as the contacts associated with that account, where the ID of the account is the one that you are passing it from the external system. Okay, is everybody understanding this SOQL query? Basically, this is a query which is retrieving the name of the account, as well as it is also retrieving the contacts to that account. Okay, but since we have a where clause where we are specifying the ID of the account, so it is only pulling up one account information and the contacts associated with that account. So if I go ahead and run this query, so if I go over and go over here, and we will go to the data export. This is the query, okay? And if I run it, you will see it has pulled up the account information as well as the contacts associated with that account. Okay, now if you go ahead and let's also pull up the ID as well. So it will also pull up the account ID. And now if you only want one particular account informations and their related contacts, here you will put a where clause where ID is equals to, this is the ID. So now it's only going to fetch one particular account and the contacts associated with that account. So if you go over to this account, you will see that this account has, let me go ahead and um, view in Salesforce. So here, if you go, you will see that this account also has an associated contacts. You can see here, there are two contacts. And why is it only giving you?
No, it's giving contact 0 and contact 1, two contacts.
Oh, sorry, it is giving two. Okay, 0 and 1. I was thinking it's only giving one. Yeah, so it is giving you both the contacts, John Amos and Edward Stamos, and you will see this is the name, John Amos and Edward Stamos. We will talk about queries next, but just understand that this query is basically retrieving the account information and the associated contacts for that account. And then here you are creating the object of contact summary, which is your inner class. If you're calling this inner class from outside, then you have to refer it as contact summary service dot of contact summary. But since you are inside of this class only, you don't have to refer it with the dot. You can directly call it like this. So you're creating the object of contact summary, and then you are setting up the account name, total contacts, and the contacts from this, basically this query. Okay. So now if I go ahead and you have to tell me the output here, but somebody needs to first explain me what we are doing. Okay, so here I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this, get rid of all these contacts. Okay, so anybody wants to take a lead at what we are doing in this?
I can.
Okay, go ahead.
So we have a new account. It's
Mhm.
called ACC, and the name is Demo Wrapper Account. And
Okay.
then we insert that account. Then
Mhm.
we have insert a new list of contacts.
Okay.
John Doe. So basically the contacts that associated to we got the contact first name, last name, as well as the account ID. So basically the accounts that are tied to an account or accounts. And then
Are we inserting them or what are we doing? Are we retrieving them? What are we doing here?
We are inserting them.
Yes, very good. So we're inserting brand new contacts and we are tying it to the demo wrapper account, which is nothing but we just created it.
Exactly.
Okay, then
we call so that's our class contact summary service, and I believe, is that an inner class?
Tell me, yes, it is an inner class.
Yeah, it's an inner class. Yeah, I didn't see
Yes.
that
So
part.
we're
Sorry.
creating the object of the inner class.
Object of that class, and we call the inner class contact summary. And so we create an object of it. It's called result, and then it's the
Here, are we
value.
creating the object? No, we are not creating the object.
But what is result here? Is it a name of the object, the new object?
Name object is usually when you do new of something. So what it is doing, so if you see here, we are calling the get summary method of the contact summary class. And it is a static method, so you don't have to create the object, you just create it with the class name. And you can see here the return type of this method is contact summary. So basically, we created a variable to hold the return type of this method, which is of the type contact summary.
Can you say that again?
Okay, so basically, what is get summary here?
Get summary is the method that we have.
Okay, from which class it is? Which class does this method belong to?
It's contact summary service.
Very good. That's the main class or the inner class? Main class, right?
Main class, yeah.
What is the return type of this get summary method?
This is what is that actually?
Contact summary.
Is contact
Inner
summary.
class.
Contact summary. Contact summary.
Context summary is the return type. Now,
Right.
in order to refer context summary from outside, like for example, if I told you a method return, they say there is a method called add, and that method takes in one parameter integer a, and it returns another of the type integer. So if you have to call this method, you usually create a variable of the type integer and you store the result of that method, correct?
Right.
Similarly, this method is returning something of the type contact summary. So we basically created a variable of the contact summary type. Now, context summary is an inner class. So how do we refer that inner class? From the outer class, which is contact summary service dot of contact summary. This is how you refer the inner class outside of the main class. Does that make sense?
Right. But get summary is the method here. Is that correct?
Yes, get summary is the method. You see
Yes,
here,
okay.
get summary is the method. It is returning something of the
Context summary.
context summary.
Gotcha.
It takes in an ID, account ID. Okay, and you're passing account.id. So what are you passing here?
Account ID.
Of which?
Of
Demo
the account of the ID of the list that we just created.
Come back again.
So we have, give me a second. So we have a query to get accounts and the contacts that associated with that.
Yes.
And
No,
here
I'm saying which account ID are we passing?
The one we just inserted.
Exactly. So we inserted this account, demo wrapper account, and we are passing the ID of that account to this method because this method is expecting a ID variable.
correct.
Okay. So
And
now what is this method doing?
It's retrieve it. That's an I forgot the name. It pulls the name of the account and contacts that associated with that account.
Okay, so what will it pull up?
So the name and contacts that associated to demo wrapper account.
So what are the names of those contacts?
It's John Doe and Sarah Miles.
Very good. So now what is going to be the output here?
So account name will be demo wrapper account, and total contact will be 2.
Okay. And then?
And then it goes through contacts and print contact plus John Doe as well as contacts equals Sarah Mons.
Okay. And did everybody understood what we are doing here? Okay. So basically, first we are creating a new account. We are inserting that account into the database. Then what we are doing is we are creating two contacts. You can see here, insert new list. So everything, you could have done this whole thing in multiple steps, but they did a short form where they are creating a new list of contact. These are the two contacts. And right then and there, they're inserting those two contacts. And these contacts are also tied to this account, which is nothing but this account that we just inserted. Then you are calling the get summary method of the contact summary service, and you're passing the account ID, this account ID, which has these two contacts. Now, whatever it returns, it is returned. We are capturing that into this variable called result. Now, result will also have this account name, total contacts, all of that. And we are just displaying the name of the account, which is demo wrapper account. What are the total contacts? Nothing but two contacts. And then here you can see the first name is John Doe, the last name John and Doe, and then Sarah and Miles. So that's going to be the output of this program. So if I do an execute here, you will see the account name is this, total contacts is 2, contact is John Doe, and another contact we have is Sarah Miles. Any questions on inner class? Why do we create it? How do you refer it? Any questions on this topic so far?
I just had one question, Deepika. So since this class is public, right? This inner class. So do we need to use this parent class dot inner class to make that
Yes,
context summary?
yes, yes. Because this class, even you shouldn't be able to, let me see 1 second, that's a good question. If I do something like this,
Yeah, that is fine, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, so you can see here, it says invalid type. So you always have to use, because it is defined inside of this class, so you always have to use contact summary service dot of contact summary.
Okay,
Okay,
thanks.
so you cannot refer it directly, but the way to refer it by using this. But if you are calling the contact summary within this class, then you don't have to use the dot. But as long as you're calling it from another class or you're calling it from an anonymous window, you will have this dot notation. Okay?
I've heard the wrapper class. The wrapper class is the inner class, or those are different?
Wrapper classes can be an inner class. Usually they put it inside of the main class. Because wrapper is basically to wrap a response that you got. Okay? So to make your response rather than in a map format, and then I will show you an example using a REST resource, and we will see how to handle when you have an inner class defined. Okay, just bear with me for a few more minutes. I have
Yeah.
another example on this one, and then we will do the wrapper class example.
Sounds good.
Okay, so the next one is, this is the class I have, email service. Now you have to give me somebody needs to explain me, somebody else. You've already, one person has already explained. So we'll go with another individual. Email service. Inside of this, you have Okay. So now what are we doing in this class? So tell me. Okay, first explain this method. Rafini, let's start with you.
Okay. The class email service, and inside that class there is email validator, the inner class.
Hmm.
The inner class is looking for the email, whether it is valid, a boolean
What
return
is this is valid? What is this?
is valid, is checking whether the string is valid.
Is it a method? Is it a variable? What is it?
It's a method,
Okay.
and if it is true, then yeah, if it is true, return email is not null and email contains at rate.
No. What? Okay. What is this doing? What is this is valid giving you?
If is valid, it is true, then it returns email. The given email is not equal to null and the email. Oh, okay. It is checking whether the email has at rate and it is not null.
Hmm. And if it
And
doesn't
if
have any of these,
yeah,
what it is going to return?
it returns true.
Very good. And if it has something, it will return?
False, of
Very
course.
good. Okay. Then what it is the next thing?
Next, in the method, the process email, the email is the input parameter,
Hmm.
and the inner class, the email valid, a new inner class is object is created,
Hmm.
and the email is valid. Again, checking. Oh, what is that? ev dot
What
is
are we doing
valid.
here? What are we doing here?
Okay, the email validator is checking again the email.
No. So basically, this is the method. Okay. Is valid is the method which belongs to the email validator class. Okay. What this method takes in, it basically checks is the email a valid email or it's not a valid email. It is either going to give you a true response or a false response. Here, what you're doing is you're calling this is valid method.
Oh, okay.
This is where you have defined the method. This is how you're calling the method. You're not calling the method from this anonymous window. You're calling it within this process email. Since it is a non-static method, I had to create the object of the class, and then I said ev.isValid and passed the same email I got from the anonymous window. Now, if the email if it is valid, okay, if this is true, if this gave you a true response, the return would be valid email, and then it will give you the email which is a valid. Otherwise, it will say invalid email. Okay, so what is going to be the output of this program?
The first one is going to be valid.
Hmm.
No, and the second one does not have an @ sign, so it will return invalid email.
Okay, so the first one will return valid email and then this email address, and then the second one will return invalid email. That's it. So if you go here, this is valid email, test@gmail.com, and this is invalid email. So the second email you gave was an invalid one. Okay. Any questions on this one?
I have a question. So I'm still making an effort to learn the inner class. So if we don't use email validator class, what happens? Like we have a main class email service and then just kind of have a method and initiate everything on that class.
Yes, you can do that. There is nothing wrong with creating this is valid method inside of the email service, but the inner class will play the most important role. This is just to explain to you how to define an inner class and how to create a method inside of that. But the 99% of the time, you will create an inner class as a wrapper class. Okay. And the wrapper class will basically, what is a wrapper class? Wrapper class is nothing but it has a bunch of variables defined, and you use it to convert your JSON response into a Salesforce object. not the standard or custom object. I'm talking about like an Apex class object. And that way you can process the data very easily. That is the main reason of creating an inner class. Here, if you had added this method directly, nothing would have happened. The way to invoke would be different, but here it doesn't give you that inner class is needed. But when we are actually doing the response from the REST API, then you will understand why the inner class is important. Okay, so now
Gotcha.
we will talk about that.
Okay.
So before I jump into this inner class for REST API, but let me tell you what is an API. Before we go ahead and talk about all of that, let's understand some of the basics. Okay, what is an API? Anybody knows what is an API?
Application interface, program interface.
Application programming interface. Now, if somebody tells you explain an API, how are you going to explain to that person?
I would say that's an address we call something. We want to
Okay.
just like a unique address.
Very good. Little bit. Yes, that's correct. So it has a unique address. Now, what does that unique address give you?
It's an
And
access to the external system or something of that sort.
Okay. Some of these answers are right. So basically, API stands for Application Programming Interface. It is basically something that you send a request to, okay, and it gives you back a response. How the response is generated, all the intricacies, the logic behind, you don't have to worry about. You basically call this API. API will always have an endpoint. It will have a method how to invoke that API. It will accept some input kind of parameters, or it will accept a body. It could be anything. Okay. Usually, if you're talking about a REST API, there are usually two types of APIs, REST and SOAP. We won't go into the SOAP APIs, but REST is a very simple, lightweight API. It will have a resource, it will have an endpoint, okay, unique endpoint, which is also called as URI. Then it will have a method, okay, how to access that endpoint. Okay, is it a get method, is it a post method, is it a patch method, is it a put method? Okay, so it will have, or it is a delete method, similar to HTTP's methods, that is the protocol we use over the internet. The same methods the REST also supports. Okay, a very good example to illustrate an API is basically, let's say you go to a restaurant. Okay, and when you go to the restaurant, you don't go directly to the kitchen and talk to the chef and tell them, hey, this is what I want. You go to the restaurant, you sit at a table, the waiter comes to you, takes your order, write down that order, and basically go to the kitchen, places the order over there, and the chef is the one who will make the food. And then chef is not going to bring that food back to you. Chef is going to call the waiter, and waiter is the one who is going to deliver the food to your table. So here, waiter is basically you are getting in touch with, it is taking your request and it is bringing you a response back. So that is exactly what API is. It takes a request, okay, and it gives you back a response. Now, behind the scene, API must be calling some systems, another server, anything like that. You don't know how it brought and how that food was made, right? Only you know that, okay, you are only interacting with the waiter who is taking your request down and bringing you a response. So that is the purpose of an API. Okay, so when you go to a website like Expedia.com, okay, when you go to a website like Expedia.com, you will see that when you select flights, okay, check the URL. So when you go to the flights here, let's say you book a flight to BWI. And when you click on search, you will see this, it has an endpoint and it also has something called as query parameters. Anything after a question mark is called as a query parameter. And you're basically making a call. This is your resource name, flight search, okay? And it picks up, it says it's a round trip from Dallas, DWI to Baltimore. So within your the way you have made the request, it basically gave you back. If you change something over here, your response is going to be different. It basically gave you all the flights from DFW to Baltimore. Now, another question is, there was another website I have. I want to explain it to you. Wait a minute. Wait a minute, 1 second. What's that website? It was a simple one to explain, but that's fine. Never mind. I don't remember it top of my head. But this is basically that Expedia was a good example. Let's say you go to what's his another one? CNN.com. If you go to CNN.com, you can go to the sports section. Okay, it will basically give you information. Let's say when you click on let's let it load. So let's say you go to health. Now you see here, it will give you a different information. If you change the URL, it is fetching information from only related to health. If you go to sleep, the URL will change and it is going to get you from health, life for better. This is the resource. So this is a resource that is available. It is fetching that data from there and showing you over here. So API is just like takes your request and gives you back a response. Okay, so here I do have an API that I'm going to use. So in order for me to show you what is the request looks like response, I'm using Postman. Yesterday I told everybody to download Postman. So Postman is basically a tool where you can test these endpoints, okay? Where you can test that and you can also see what kind of response they are giving, what is the request they are accepting, all of that. So here I'm going to go to the if you go here, I'm making a call to this API. Okay, this is the name of the API. And basically, this API is nothing but it gives you a random joke. Okay, and this is the complete URL for this API. This is not something that is built in Salesforce. It's an external API. Okay, and we can do any kind of methods. Now, this API, when you make a get method, it is going to retrieve a random joke for you. Okay, so once I hit send here, if you click on the send, you will see a response. Okay, a response came. It's a 200 response, means it's a good response. Everything worked fine. If it was a 404, it means not found. Whatever you are calling is not available. If it was 500, it means there is an error in the server side. So there's a 500 is internal server error. But this is the response that particular API gave it to me. Okay. So here it basically gave a stupid joke. I don't know what the jokes is, but this is the API that we are going to call from Salesforce, and we're going to make a call to this. Now you can be calling another application, could be you can be publishing an event or things like that. But in the real world, you will be hitting an endpoint, okay? And the other team is going to share how to hit that endpoint, because sometimes those endpoints will require some authentication mechanism, some token, and similarly, the other applications will be hitting Salesforce. So you have to create a connected app, authentication values, you have to give it to them, and you have to give them a endpoint so they can hit. So it can happen both ways, right? You hitting another system or they hitting Salesforce. So when they are hitting Salesforce, then you have to give them a client ID, client secret, all of that. We will take a look at the other way also. But here we are taking a look when from Salesforce, we are making a call to the another endpoint. Okay, this is an external endpoint we are making, and this is the response that it gives you back. And I'm just using one API which is available for free. You can use any APIs that is available for free, test it, and then make a call to that system. Any questions so far, guys? What an API is, what are the different methods? Any questions so far?
Yeah, I have a question about the callout. So Salesforce just supports HTTPS callout. Is that correct to say?
It can do HTTP callout too, yeah. It doesn't always, I haven't read it that it only does HTTPS, but it's always wiser to do HTTPS because it's more secured.
No, I mean HTTP or HTTPS callouts. It doesn't support any other callouts. Is that correct to say?
But anything that's available on the internet will always be HTTP or HTTPS.
There is another way of callout I read sometimes somewhere, and I was meant to ask you because I read about the integration project, and so the way they wanted to call out, like when the when the API doesn't support the callout, it's like a legacy
Are you
API.
talking about a SOAP API?
Not so, probably so. I don't know. Maybe
There's
it's
only
so.
two, SOAP or X, like it's, uh, uh, but Salesforce supports both.
Yeah, I have to take a look again, and I can ask you next week. But
Okay.
I've seen a problem, and it
Both.
wasn't possible to do it in Salesforce. I'll take
Okay. Yeah, if you give me a little bit more information, I might find some answer for you. Okay, so this is the endpoint here, and this is the get method. Now, sometimes their question could be, hey, I have created a record and I wanted to create the same record in database in another system outside of Salesforce. You can do that. And one of the very good example here is you can have it through MuleSoft. So I can show you a small project that I have built using MuleSoft if you have time. But over there, what I've done is if something happens in database, Salesforce will create a record, and if Salesforce creates something new, it will get added to the database. And 99% of the time, this is how it works. You'll have usually they started to use MuleSoft now because it's very good. Kind of MuleSoft is one shop's place for creating APIs, designing APIs, deploying them, talking through different systems, all of that.
It's a middleware, right?
Yes, it is kind of like, yeah, it basically, if it's prevents point-to-point communication, and it basically allows you to just talk to MuleSoft, and MuleSoft is responsible for transforming the data, doing everything with that. Okay, but we will get into those things in a little bit, but let's focus on this for now. So this is the API I'm trying to hit. So I have a code written, and I'll explain to you the code. So this is a REST call I'm making. File, new Apex class. And over here, see here, I have created a response. Now, one thing I need to do is I have to first, this is the call that I'm making. So I have to put this as a static not as a static result, as in the remote site setting or name credentials, because I need to tell Salesforce that it is okay to call this endpoint. Okay. So I have to update it in my remote site settings. Otherwise, you will get an error message saying you cannot make this call. So I'm going to click on new remote site setting. And here I'll put the whole URL and make it active. Hit save. Okay, so now let's understand what we are doing here. So first of all, this is the response that this API is giving. So what I did is I created a inner class. And if you look at the values that I'm using, the name of the variables, ID, value, URL, icon, URL, and categories. And if you look at the response, it is matches to what this response is, icon, URL, ID, URL, value, etc. So these names match. So when you're actually going to deserialize it, or sorry, serializing, it's when you're going to serialize it means converting from a JSON over to a object of Apex class, then automatically it will be easy to put from JSON over to this object. Okay. So here, this is the inner class I have created based on the response that this API is giving. And you will know the response because you will first, anytime you're hitting a endpoint, you will first test the endpoint with the postman. That's what 99.9% of the time you should do, is check, is it working through postman? And what the postman is expecting, right? Is it expecting a client ID or a secret or a username or a password, all of that? You will first provide it through postman and see if that postman is giving you a 200 response. And same thing you have to mimic from Salesforce. So then I created a method here called getRandomJoke is the name of the method. And the response is nothing but this is the inner class, is the response of the return type of this method. Now, these are the most important statements that you have to remember. HTTP request. See, you are making a call out. You're making an HTTP call out, right? You're making this call to this API, which is available on HTTP, on web, right? It's a web service. So you have to first instantiate you have to remember these lines. There's no other way. This is how you have to call every endpoint. You will make an HTTP request here. You will set the endpoint. This is the endpoint you're making. And then if you remember in Postman, you selected the name of the method, you selected this is the endpoint, and that's it. Those are the only two things required for this API. But for some API, you will have to set a security token, a username, a password, all of that other additional thing. This was a simple API, which is readily available for free. Anybody can hit it, doesn't require any authentication. Okay. And then we are creating this object of HTTP. And then whatever the response, when you make this call out, you're creating a variable of the type response to hold the response of this API. So this is what we do. HTTP.send is when the call out is made. Okay. This is the line where the call out has been made, but whom to call, the endpoint and everything we are setting up over here. Okay. So first is we create a HTTP request object. Then we set up the endpoint on there. We set up the get method, and then we use http.send to make the callout. Now, the reason we have written this in a try catch is because there can be several reasons if the API was down or you are not hitting it properly, you're not using the proper endpoint, you have missed an M, misspelled, or whatever it is. If there is any call out exception, it will come to this catch block. Okay. If this request went successful, it will give you back a response. Now here, the response will always have a status code, 200, 500, 404, whatever. Here you're checking if the response status code is not 200, means it was not successful. You are basically creating an object of the inner class, which is joke response. And over there, you are setting up the error response. And inside of the error response, you are setting up, this is the string you are setting up. Okay, response.getBody and response.getStatus is going to give you the status and whatever the error response is. And you're creating a object of joke response. This is the magic of inner class. The moment you did JSON.deserialize and you have whatever it is returning you, you're converting into of this type. So what actually happened, the JSON response that this API is generating, you converted into this object, joke response. So if I want to fetch only the URL of this, all I need to do is basically say system.debug joke of URL or joke of value or iterate through the category. So it's easier for me to look at the response. Otherwise, this response is a JSON, and you basically will have a map when you deserialize it. If you're not using inner class, then you will capture the response in a map in a key value pair, and it is hard to iterate over what the response looks like. So when you basically put it into this way, it is easier to fetch the details of the response. Does it make sense, guys, why I am doing this particular piece here? What is the reason of deserializing and converting the response into joke response? Because then I can basically fetch whatever I need from this response by using dot values. Otherwise, I had to first use a map and then uh, pretty much pick and choose the key and all of that. So it will become it will be hard to deal with. So that's why it's better to create an inner class and capture the response in through that wrapper. So this is nothing but it's a wrapper class.
So
Does it
basically,
make sense?
on the 45, line 45, so whatever response you get, you deserialize it
Yeah.
in terms of the wrapper class, joke response.
Yes, so yeah, exactly. So you're deserializing it. Deserializing means converting a JSON request into a Salesforce data type, which is nothing but of the type joke response. That is the deserializing. Serializing means converting an object into a JSON. That is serializing. Okay. Here, what you're doing, you are deserializing it, means you're converting the response. Response is coming as a JSON response. You can see here, this is a JSON response, right? So what it did was you created an inner class using some of these exact names. And then basically that response got converted into joke response by just typing in this line. Okay. Now, if I execute this, it is going, and see here, this is how it's so simple to fetch. So if I do this is the result. So this is the method I'm calling. Okay, this is that get random joke. This is the method in which the callout is being made. And over here, whatever the response is of the type joke response. And then I want to access the ID, I'll use joke.of_id. If I want to access the URL, I'll say joke.of_URL. It is so easy. If I would not have used the inner class, it would have been a map response. And then I had to literally iterate over that map response to fetch these things. So inner class has made my response life easier. I can use it to, now I can send this data easily to another class, and it's easy to work with when you have an inner class, when you have a response in a form of a an Apex class. It's much more easier than if you were just have to deal with a map. Okay. So now if I execute it, it's going to give you, wait a minute. Okay. So now this is the response. So the raw body is, this is the raw body. This is the response. But what they did is they basically, from this response, they fetched the ID part, they fetched the URL, they fetched the categories, and they fetched the joke test. Okay. So this is the simple API that gives you a gist of how you're going to make a call from Salesforce to another system. Any questions on this one?
Can you scroll up? So for that,
Which one?
yeah, here. So for in line 15, joke response is the
Return type.
return type, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Is a return type of this get random joke. So basically, if you see here, this is the return type of this return joke here. So this is joke is of the type joke response. So this is the return type of the method.
Gotcha. And for HTTP request rec is we create a new object of HTTP request.
Yes, you have to.
Same as HTTP, right?
This is a boilerplate code. You have to write it every time you have to make a REST call. Okay. You will first create an object of HTTP request. Then you will create an object of HTTP, and then you will use http.send, and you will send that request in which the endpoint is set, the method is set. So tomorrow, if I give you another assignment, hey, call another endpoint, then you will have to use the same exact code. Nothing changes except the endpoint will change, the method you are doing will change, all of that will change, but this boilerplate code will remain the same. This is how you make a call to a third-party system.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Okay, sounds good.
So
And
let's say if I give you an assignment for tomorrow, what I'm going to say, hey, make a call.
Deepika,
Yes.
I have a question. So
Yes.
basically, we are creating that inner class to create a object for serializing and
capture the response.
deserializing.
Yes, to capture the response. Now I'll show you another example here. So let me see without the inner class. Did I have an example? No, actually, I don't have an example of without the inner class. Without the inner class, what will happen is when you do a deserialize, okay, let's say you didn't have the joke response, then this is going to give you a basically will give you a map of key value pair. Okay. And then if you have to capture the ID, then you're going to say, hey, then you have to go through the for loop, fetch the
Okay.
ID, display the ID, fetch the value, display the value. So it's much more difficult to do that. Whereas this line basically converted the response in a Apex class object, and then it's easier to access those values from that object. That is the purpose of creating an inner class.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
So Deepika, can this inner class be
You can put it outside.
can it be yeah, so can it be a regular class instead
Yes,
of
you
this?
can do a regular class, but that regular class has no meaning or significance other than this class. It is wiser to put it inside of this class so that it remains encapsulated. I can definitely create another class and I can use the same exact thing, but then that class is just being used for one purpose. So why not put it inside of this class?
No, correct. If it is related to one feature or class, right, we could
Yes.
have used one. But
Yeah.
if it is spread across multiple features,
Then
right,
you can definitely put it in then you can put it in a separate class and then you can do the same exact thing.
okay.
Okay.
Deepika, here
Yes.
we are testing our endpoint in Postman, right? So, checking our endpoint by putting the endpoint in Postman, right? So, then only in our inner class, we are giving some variables, right?
Yes. Yes.
So,
So
is that depends on the endpoint what the Postman is giving, or we are deciding and
no,
giving?
see this line, this because it's automatically happening. So it is very important to use the same names. So look at the HTTP response. This is the response. It has same created it icon URL. So the mapping that it is doing, deserializing, it is happening automatically.
Okay, what is my question is, after checking the endpoint in Postman, what are the variables here they are giving? We are keeping those variable using those variables there, or I mean,
Okay, come back. See, this is, I cannot control the response of the endpoint, right? That's how that endpoint works. So these names are fixed. This categories is fixed, created at is fixed. This is how this endpoint is going to give me. So what I did is after looking at the Postman result, I figured out, okay, this is all the values it gives me back. So I created I created a joke response inner class which ID value URL is coming from these key values, icon URL, ID, updated at URL, all of that. So that's
okay.
when I am
So
doing
always the key values always depends on the how
the
the endpoint is
responding,
okay.
the response, because it'll be automatically, it will deserialize it based on those names. So it knows ID response to put it into ID, value response to put it into value, URL
So
response.
we cannot give whatever.
You cannot. Then the mapping won't happen. Then
Okay.
the conversion properly won't happen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Deepika, here the joke response is an inner class, right? So you're closing the inner class here itself so that this method you're calling it is outside of that inner class and of type joke response, right? the public static joke response get
Yes,
random
so
joke.
basically this is just the inner class. This is the small
Yeah.
inner class. And this joke response is basically has all these instance variables. It has ID, it has value, it has URL, all of that. And get random joke is returning me of something of the type joke response.
Joke
That's
response.
the return type.
Okay.
Okay. This
Yeah.
method belongs to Chuck Norris joke service, not to this class. This method belongs to the outer class, get random joke.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And also in the below where you deserialize, right? So you are using a different method, kind of like joke response of you're trying to create an instance of the joke response class here, and it should have been joke response dot JSON, or is it the format like it should
This
be
is
like
always
this?
going to be the format. So the response dot get body, this is a JSON response, right? And you are saying to convert this JSON response into joke response. So you always need to specify in which format you want to convert the JSON to.
So even after that, we need to cast it to joke response.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, because even if we do it, it's important to convert it into joke response. Yes, that is important. So you have to, whatever the output of this, you are basically making sure it is of the type joke response. So you are converting it to a joke response type. Yes, so this line would be exactly like this way. You cannot.
And you're putting that into a variable of type joke response.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the one endpoint we're hit. Now I will give you an assignment tomorrow morning, not today, where you will be hitting another endpoint and you will see how the response is different. You will create a separate inner class. Everything would be separate, but you will get an idea of then see, you use it with and without this inner class. See how the response is difficult. If I say from the response, fetch me a given particular value, you can do it based on a map response, or you can also do it based on the inner class response. It is much easier to iterate over the inner class versus a map response. Okay, guys, any questions for this so far, what we have discussed?
Can you explain line 45 again?
Okay, so basically, what are we doing here is we are converting the response of the API, which is a JSON response, and we are converting it into, we are mapping it into this joke response. So what does joke response has? Joke response has ID, it has value, it has a URL, and then it has, what other things it has? It has a ID, value, URL, and then it has icon URL, and then it has categories. Okay, this is a class, right? And these are the instance variables. Now, what is your JSON response? JSON response is this response. This is your response. So what it did was it basically said, mapped the ID. Okay, so it whatever this response is giving me this ID. So it is putting this value 7x whatever for this one, 7x dash phy and all of that. Then value is whatever the value is. So this value part, this is going to be put into this. Then URL is this HTTPS API dot, this is your URL. So based on this response, it converted into this data, into this object. And basically, whatever the response, it ID values went over here, value went over this place, URL for this one. So it converted that JSON into Apex object. So this is the deserializing that this particular line is doing. It is converting the JSON into a joke response. In a 30-foot view, that's what it is doing. It is converting the JSON into something of the type joke response.
Kind of it does the mapping.
It does the map.
Translates the map. Okay.
and it converts from a JSON to an Apex output.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, so this is it for today's class, guys. I will see you Monday, and I will give you the assignment by tomorrow morning and the recording as well. So you will have at least 3-4 days to work on the assignment.
Sounds great. And if we have time, can we go over the MuleSoft a little bit in more details, especially the project
Okay.
you had?
You want to do it right now?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so let me open up. Hopefully these will work. So I'll just give you a because see, we are not getting into MuleSoft. MuleSoft is a whole different beast, but I'll show you how that works. Okay, so that way you will have something to talk in your projects. So let's say if I launch Anypoint. Has anybody has any experience with MuleSoft?
No.
I have.
Okay, okay. So I have a database as well, MySQL Workbench, and I created like small projects here just to show you. So this is the database. This is a Amazon database that I'm connecting to. And if you see here, this is my dbdips is the name. And I have two tables, leads and customers. Okay. And this is still taking time. It takes a while to load Anypoint Studio.
So meanwhile, Deepa, can you please post that the link in the WhatsApp chat? This joke URL one.
Okay, one second.
The joke endpoint.
Yeah, I will give it to you. Similarly, you can access like a weather API. You can get all of those things. So this one was a very simple, easy to access. Okay, I posted it over there.
Thank you.
Okay, so now this takes a while.
So for using MuleSoft, is there any kind of trial version of MuleSoft?
Yes, there is a trial version. So you get a 30-day trial.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll show you a couple of projects that I have built here. One of the project is object store example. Okay, so what I have done, so this is how the Mule palette is. You download this Anypoint Studio. It's pretty simple. So then I have a scheduler. Okay, that runs every 30 seconds. Yeah, every 30 seconds and delay of 10 seconds. So how do I explain to you? Let's not do this project because this is little bit different. Let's go talk about this one. Salesforce to database. Okay. So here I have anytime I create a lead record into Salesforce, it pushes that lead record over to a database. Okay. So let me show you. So if I go over and log into another Salesforce account of mine, so you can see this is another account I have. If I log in to this, and right now, and if you go to the leads, it has about 6 leads right now. Okay. And if I go to the database and if I pull up this leads table, and if I run this, it has 6 records. Okay. Now let's say I added a new lead record. So what I'm doing here is anytime I create a new lead. Okay, so let's say this is the company, and that's it. Okay, so I'm putting the first name and last name, and then I have a company name, and I'm going to hit save here. So what's happening is it is going to create if I run this again, a seventh record will be created. Okay, you can see here the layer Mendi has been created. And basically how it is working is I have a listener added in my MuleSoft, okay, which listens to this change that is happening. So I created a platform event in Salesforce, and that platform event basically has the fields like lead ID, first name, last name, all of that. And then I've also created a trigger on the lead object. Anytime a new lead is created, I am publishing that platform event. And that is the platform event this listener is listening to. So anytime Salesforce publishes that platform event, it listens to that change, and then it is converting that request, the platform event, into this format. Okay, so if I double click this, you will see, you will see it converts it into this payload. Okay, so whatever the platform event is bringing up, it is converted into this format. And then I'm using this connector called insert connector. And this is the connector which basically does an insert onto the leads table. And it is sending the lead ID, first name, etc. from this transform message. We are inserting into the leads table. These are the values we are putting. And basically, lead ID is nothing but in the payload that is coming from the transform message, there is a lead ID. So whatever is coming from there, we are putting it here, and it inserts into the database. So this is the end-to-end project. Did you guys understood it?
So we all can be done by the help of flow, right?
How? With
Like
which flow? Which flow you're talking about?
like record trigger flow, anything, whenever there is a record created, it's saved into the database, Salesforce database. So why do we
It's
need the
not saving
middleware?
into Salesforce database. This is not saving into Salesforce. This is saving into this MySQL database, which is an external system. This is an Amazon database. This is not a Salesforce database. This is
Your own. Okay. All
this is
right.
my own personal database that I hosted on Amazon. I created this database, and this is the database I am saving. So Salesforce is a separate system. Database is a separate system. Did you get it?
So that's why it's creating the API, like all
Yes.
the information, because it's
So-
connected with external systems. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So now, now there are two separate systems, and I'm using MuleSoft to basically transform the message. Otherwise, how will I make the call to the database directly from Salesforce? Rather than doing that part, what I did is I'm using MuleSoft. I'm publishing the event. MuleSoft is listening to that event, gets that event message, converts it into the response that database looks for, and then basically I am inserting into the leads table.
So Deepika, here are we pushing messages? Are we using queues or topics to publish these events?
No, we are using from Salesforce, we are using platform events. I don't know how that works behind the scenes. So this is this listener is listening to that platform event.
Okay, this is Salesforce connector, right? Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, this is the Salesforce. So it is listening to the lead created event. This is a platform event I created. And so anytime any event get published, this flow will kick in. And it transforms it and inserts into the database.
Gotcha. Yeah, great. Thanks for the demo. And overall, in terms of career-wise, would you recommend just focusing on MuleSoft or more like an Apex and integration in Apex? Or
Apex
both
and
of them is
integration.
great.
MuleSoft you can learn MuleSoft in 3 to 4 weeks. It's not too difficult.
Okay.
But with MuleSoft, you'll have a good integration understanding. But right now, focus on Salesforce, Apex, and integration, and LWC, all of that, because that is also very important if you want to become a Salesforce developer.
Great.
So Deepika, so it's same. It's calling with the REST, like REST or so whatever the API are, and then again it's a transfer same like from JSON
Here we
to
are not doing. Here we are not doing API call. Here, if you remember, do you know what platform events are?
yeah. Oh, you're using the platform.
Yeah,
Yes, you told me.
I'm using
Okay.
a platform event, and I am publishing the platform event.
Even okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is the event this listener is listening to.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, you told me that. Okay.
Okay. So this is another example of an integration project. And basically, if you look at the smallest simple version, this is what happens in the real world. There's a system, 99% of the time they'll be using something like MuleSoft, or like a Kafka. I don't know what those are, but like a message bus. And they'll listen to that message, transform that message, and put it into the next system. So if you have done one or two integrations, you can figure out the rest of the integrations. So I gave you two examples. One is through REST, and then the other one is through MuleSoft.
Difficult for this MuleSoft thing, like you logged into a different Salesforce, like the account and edit everything, right? So this configuration is being tied to that, or like anything is being
No,
this
so
is
this
listening to any of the lead records.
no. So it is basically, if you see here, in the replay channel, it is, if you see the Salesforce config, this is basically where my configuration is. So here I'm
Okay.
connecting to this Salesforce account. So that specific Salesforce account, not through any Salesforce account. This is the account I'm connecting to. This is the security token. And once I've connected to that account, from there, if the lead gets created, that's when the platform event is generated from that specific Salesforce account. And the configuration is over here. Now I can change the configuration and
Yeah.
point to a different Salesforce org.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
And and these platform events are predefined, right, Deepika? This
So
lead.
platform event is it is basically you create in Salesforce. So just like you create a custom object, you have something called as platform events in Salesforce. This is basically for event communication, event-based, near real-time communication. You create platform events. So here I've created a platform event called as lead created event, and this lead created event has these fields and like email ID, first name, last name, etc. And then I have a trigger on the lead object. So if you go here, you go to the lead object, you go to the trigger I have created, and whenever there is a insert on the lead object, a event gets published. You see here, event bus.publish. So onto that event, you are passing the lead information like first name, last name, email, company, etc.
Okay.
Okay. So I gave you
So
like a end-to-end flow. I don't know how many of you understood it, how many you didn't. I hope everybody kind of at least got a gist of what we are doing.
Yeah. It's pretty
Yeah.
simple. Like you're using platform event, and then Salesforce pushes the real-time message with the MuleSoft
Yeah,
processes and send back to the external system, respond
this is the
back to the
database.
yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, pretty simple. Okay, guys. Anything else?
No, thank you so much.
Okay, I will talk to you guys on Monday then. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.